It started with a silence that didn't belong on television. The lights were bright. The laughter had been flowing. The host had just delivered a punchline that made the crowd roar. And then nothing. No one could have predicted what was about to happen, least of all Denzel Washington. He had done these shows 100 times before, maybe more. Smile, answer questions, tease the next project, share a motivational quote and leave. But that night the script unraveled. "I've got a surprise for you," the host said, grinning, cueing the studio team. Denzel tilted his head slightly, half smile still frozen on his face. The massive screen behind him flickered. At first it was just a blur, then a flag. Not American, not familiar to most of the studio audience. Red, green, gold star. Burkina Faso. Denzel's expression didn't change, but his eyes did. A flicker. Confusion? Curiosity? Then came a voice, deep, measured, clear. "Good evening, Mr. Washington. This is Ibrahim Traoré." The words hit like a cold gust of wind. The room froze. "The president of the transition in Burkina Faso," the voice continued. Denzel leaned back, visibly trying to compute the situation. What the hell was happening? He nodded slowly. "Yes. Hello?" he said, his voice softer now, unsure. What followed turned the air to lead. "I was a boy," the president said. 14, barefoot, hungry, angry. Then I saw you in a film, Glory. The mention of that movie, of that role, struck Denzel like a delayed punch. "You were the first man I saw cry without begging," Ibrahim said. "You looked like me, but you didn't look weak." The audience was dead quiet. "After that night," Ibrahim continued, "I told my mother one day, I will be like this man. I will not kneel." Denzel's hand slowly went to his mouth. His fingers pressed against his lips. But his eyes gave him away, wet, locked. "No," he whispered. "No way." "You helped shape my spine, Mr. Washington," the president said. "Before I ever picked up a weapon, before I ever stood in front of crowds, you gave me permission to believe I had worth." Denzel's mouth parted. He looked down. He blinked fast, once, twice, too late. One tear had already escaped. "I wanted you to know," Ibrahim said, "because I owe you something." "What do you mean?" Denzel finally asked, his voice hoarse. "In my country," the president said, "a man who saves your soul is never forgotten." Then came the shock. "I want to name a school after you." The host didn't move. The audience didn't breathe. Denzel didn't speak. "A school where we teach young men and women to rise, not because they are born strong, but because someone once showed them what strength looks like." Denzel blinked again, finally speaking. "I'm just an actor." "No, sir," Ibrahim replied. "You were the spark. And we don't ignore sparks here. We follow them." The screen went black, and for the first time in his life, on live television, Denzel Washington dropped his head and wept. Denzel didn't speak to anyone after the show. His team hovered, questions flew, reporters called. But he didn't say a word. He went home. Not to the mansion in Beverly Hills. He didn't feel like a man, meant to be in a mansion that night. Instead, he locked himself inside a modest guest house near the hills. No assistants, no chef. Just a black duffel bag and a glass of untouched bourbon. He replayed the moment over and over. That voice, that accent, that certainty. A man had stared down guns and warlords and was now the face of a revolution. And he was saying Denzel Washington had something to do with it. He didn't sleep. By sunrise, he had booked a flight, commercial, economy, no entourage. He didn't even tell his publicist. The plane descended into Burkina Faso under a hazy sun. No red carpet, no cameras, just heat and silence. A single black SUV waited near the tarmac. One driver, no security detail. The passenger door opened, and standing there in simple clothes, no medals, no armor, was President Ibrahim Traoré. He didn't smile, neither did Denzel. They just stared. And then the president stepped forward and pulled him into an embrace. No words, just pressure. The kind of hug men give each other when their souls already know what needs to be said. "You didn't have to come," Ibrahim finally said. "I couldn't not," Denzel answered. They drove in silence, past open markets, tin-roofed houses, streets lined with barefoot kids playing football in the dirt. Some waved. None recognized him. They arrived at a small clay house at the edge of the city. The door was wooden, sun-beaten. The walls cracked. A single rusted lantern swung above the entrance. "This was where I lived," Ibrahim said. "Before uniforms, before speeches." Inside, the room smelled like old wood and fire smoke. There was no luxury, just old books, a mat, and a framed photo on the wall. It showed a young boy standing beside a woman with weathered skin and fire in her eyes. "She raised me," the president said. "When my mother worked late nights, she was my shield." Denzel stared at the photo. "Where is she now?" he asked. Ibrahim's jaw tensed. "Still working, cleaning a rural school 2 hours from here. She's 85. She's still working," Denzel said, stunned. "She said God gave her hands. She won't stop using them." They drove again, longer this time, through red dirt roads, thick fields, past villages where no one had televisions and no one knew what Hollywood meant. When they arrived at the school, it looked like time had forgotten it. Faded walls, cracked cement, kids drawing shapes in the dirt with sticks. And then, out of nowhere, she appeared. Bent back, thin arms, a broom in one hand. Her face, the same from the photo. She stopped when she saw the men walking toward her. "Ibrahim," she said, voice shaking. He didn't answer. He dropped to his knees in front of her and buried his head in her stomach. Like a child, she touched his hair. Her eyes closed. "I knew you'd come back," she whispered. Then she looked past him. Her gaze landed on Denzel. Her eyes narrowed, then widened. She took a step forward. Her broom clattered to the ground. "You," she whispered. "You are the one." From the screen, Denzel didn't speak. He simply stepped forward and held her trembling hand. That afternoon, they sat beneath a baobab tree. 3 people, 3 different lives. One moment, she told stories of hunger, of long nights, of Ibrahim as a boy, sleeping on the floor with dreams bigger than their walls. Denzel listened like a child, and then she pulled out something from the pocket of her apron. A piece of paper, yellowed, folded, torn. Denzel unfolded it. It was a letter, written in a child's hand. "One day I will be a leader and I will find you, Mama. I promise." Ibrahim gasped. "I wrote that when I was 9. She nodded. "I knew you'd come back, and I knew he'd come with you." She looked at Denzel. "You were part of the promise." The night was heavy with silence when they returned to the city. Denzel sat on the edge of the terrace, overlooking the capital. His hands were clasped, knuckles pale. He didn't speak. Neither did Ibrahim. The air between them held too much. Finally, Denzel said, "I've played warriors, kings, cops, preachers, but I've never felt smaller than I did today." Ibrahim didn't look at him. "You weren't small. You were seen." Denzel turned. That woman raised a president alone with nothing, and she's still sweeping floors. Still feeding children from a sack of rice and pride. "She refused help," Ibrahim said. "Said help is for those who stop trying." They sat quiet again, the kind of quiet only broken by memory. Then Denzel spoke. "We need to give her a name she can't sweep away." Ibrahim finally turned. "What are you thinking?" "Something bold," Denzel said. "Something permanent." Ibrahim nodded slowly. "Say it." "A day," Denzel said. "A day that belongs to her. In your calendar. Every year." Ibrahim leaned back, arms folded. His eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. Not a big one. A dangerous one. The kind a man makes when he's about to bend the rules. "She deserves it," he said. "And more," Denzel added. The next morning, they didn't go to the palace. They returned to the school. But this time something had changed. The teachers were in clean clothes. The kids were lined up. A flag fluttered outside that wasn't there before. Word had spread, quietly but fast. Something big was about to happen. Mama Hawa stood confused near the classroom door. Then Ibrahim stepped forward. No speechwriters, no microphones, just a box in his hand. He dropped to one knee. Inside was a medallion, gold engraved, "For your service to this nation." As a mother, as a guardian, as the spine of a future leader. He pinned it to her faded blouse. The children began to clap. Denzel stepped up next. He pulled out a folded envelope. "I spoke to my people back home," he said. "They agreed. Your story, your life is going to be told." She looked at him confused. "We're making a film," Denzel said. "Based on you?" And every single dollar it earns, it goes to this village, this school, these kids. She gasped. Her legs trembled. She reached out to touch his chest, not out of recognition, but to steady herself. Then she wept. She didn't say thank you. She just leaned her head against Denzel's shoulder and let the tears fall. But the world wasn't done watching. 3 days later, Denzel returned to the US. He hadn't planned to talk. He didn't want to explain, but the producers had already booked him on a massive live interview. Reluctantly, he agreed, but with one demand: no script. I speak my truth. The show opened with the usual flair: bright lights, audience claps, music bumpers. Then the host asked the question, Denzel, what happened over there? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of old cloth, a scarf, faded, torn. The room leaned in. She tied this on his arm when he was a child, Denzel said. Said he was going to be president one day. Then he picked up his phone, hit play. President Traoré's voice echoed through the studio. Thank you for honoring a woman the world forgot, but who made a man the world will remember. Denzel looked up. His throat tightened. And then he broke. His head dropped. His hands shook. And in front of millions, he wept again. The studio was still, the audience silent. The host, speechless. Nothing about it was performative. No strings, no sentimentality. Just one man broken open by something real, something ancient, something raw. Twitter blew up. Clips went viral, not just in America, but in Brazil, Nigeria, France, Japan. It was global, but the real ripple was underground. Letters started arriving at the Burkina Faso embassy, not from diplomats, from teenagers, from elderly women, from men who hadn't cried since war. The letters didn't talk about the movie. They talked about their mothers. 6 days had passed since Denzel arrived in Burkina Faso. 6 days that felt like a lifetime. He hadn't touched a script, hadn't returned calls. He barely ate. His world had shifted from red carpets to red dust, from studio lights to the quiet hum of a fan in a clay home. And Mama Hawa was growing tired. Not the kind of tired that rest could fix. The kind that comes after a lifetime of giving. The kind that quietly prepares you to go. She sat on a low stool outside her home, wrapped in a thin shawl, her eyes still bright, her smile still wide, but her breaths had grown shallow. That morning, she made a request. Bring them to me, she said. No cameras, no noise, just them. Her message was delivered. Within the hour, President Traoré and Denzel arrived. No convoy, no ceremony. Just the two men she had raised, one with her hands, the other with her spirit. They sat by her bedside. A small fan spun lazily overhead. Dust floated through the air like memory. She reached out, took one of their hands in each of hers. I won't see next planting season, she said plainly. Denzel's jaw clenched. Ibrahim turned away. But I'm not afraid, she said. They both leaned in, but she waved her fingers gently. Don't ask me to stay. I've done what I came to do. Then she took a slow breath. But I have one last request. They nodded. No child in this country should ever go to school hungry. Not one. She turned to Denzel. You tell stories. People listen. Tell this one. He nodded slowly. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Then she reached under her pillow. She pulled out a scarf, faded, fraying, the same scarf. She tied around young Ibrahim's arm when he said he'd one day be president. She handed it to him. My first medal, she whispered. Ibrahim took it like it was made of glass. She looked at them both. Take care of each other. And then she closed her eyes. The fan continued to spin, but the room stopped moving. She was gone. Denzel stood outside. His hands gripped the edges of the porch. Ibrahim walked out behind him, holding the scarf like a flag from a lost war. Neither man spoke, but they understood something ancient had just ended, or begun. Word spread fast, not through media, through mouths, through whispers. By midday, villagers had gathered. They didn't need an announcement. They felt it. Mama Hawa was gone. Ibrahim stepped onto the porch, looked at the growing crowd and raised the scarf. She has gone to rest, he said, but her fire still burns. A cry rose from the people, not in fear, not in despair, but in honor. The funeral was the next morning. No golden casket, no velvet robes, just wood hand-carved, resting in the center of the village. Drums played, slow and steady. Smoke curled into the sky. Ibrahim walked behind the casket alone. In his hand, only the scarf. Denzel followed. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, but he moved like a man walking through fire and not looking for a way out. At the graveside, a boy appeared, barefoot, from a nearby village. He handed Ibrahim a folded note. It said, "Thank you for raising our president." As the casket was lowered, children sang. Elders held each other. The earth didn't just take a body that day. It took a legend and gave back silence. Then something no one expected. Denzel stepped forward. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a necklace, his father's. "She reminded me of him," he said, placing it gently atop the casket. Strong, quiet, never asked for anything. He paused, then whispered, "Goodbye, Mama." The camera stopped filming. Some things, even in this world, were still too sacred for the screen. The village slept, but the world did not. By nightfall, photos from the funeral had leaked. Not from the media, but from someone in the crowd. A blurry image of Denzel Washington, head bowed at the grave, the scarf fluttering beside him. No caption, no filter, just truth. It spread like wildfire. The next morning, the president of Ghana released a statement of respect. So did the Prime Minister of Canada. An ex-US president retweeted the photo with the word legacy. But Denzel remained silent. He stayed in the village 2 more days. No interviews, no spotlight. Just walking the dirt roads, talking with kids, watching the wind move through the fields. And then on the 3rd day, without warning, he left. No press, no convoy, no goodbye. Just a car, a plane, and the weight of something irreversible. When he returned to Los Angeles, the industry was waiting. Paparazzi circled the airport. Networks offered exclusive interviews. One studio promised a 7-figure deal if he shared his story first on their platform. He declined all of it. Instead, he made a call to his agent. "Cancel everything for the next year," he said. "What?" "Denzel, we have all of it." Then he hung up. He opened his phone, logged onto Instagram, found a photo from Burkina Faso, a single tree silhouetted by dawn. He posted it. No caption, no tags, no quote. The comment section exploded anyway. This man changed. That scarf means more than an Oscar. A tree holds roots. I see it now. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, something else was happening. The scarf, the story, the woman, the letter from the boy. They were no longer moments. They were movement. Kids from remote villages started writing to the president, not asking for toys or gifts, but asking questions. If I work hard, will I make my mother proud too? Can I become a leader if I come from dust? Ibrahim read every letter. He answered some by hand. He passed others to Denzel. They were now tied by bloodless sacrifice. Not war heroes, not political icons, but sons of the same ghost. And then, without an announcement, a statue appeared. In the heart of Ouagadougou, under the open sky, workers unveiled it in the middle of the night. Not of a man, not of a politician, but of a woman, bent slightly, holding a child's hand, a scarf tied around her wrist. Below it, a plaque in bronze, to Mama Hawa, the mother of leaders. At sunrise, President Traoré stood before it, candle in hand. Denzel stood beside him, silent. Neither man spoke, because some endings don't need words. They just need to be felt. Later that day, Denzel made his final move. He announced a scholarship, not in his name, not for actors, but for girls from rural Africa who want to lead. He called it simply the Hawa Fund. When reporters begged for a quote, he offered just one sentence. Some phone calls change your schedule. This one changed my soul. Loved this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode. Drop a heart in the comments if this touched you, and tell me, what kind of story should I tell next? Your idea could be my next upload.